I'm in a shit on Eli Manning type of mood right now. And that's exactly what we're going to do in this video. We're going to talk about how instrumental Tiki Barber was to Eli Manning's success his first 3 seasons in the NFL. Now let's get to it. Eli Manning, in his first season with the New York Giants, he started his first game with the Atlanta Falcons. He was 17 for 37. Had a completion percentage of 45.9. He threw for 162 yards. That's game number 1. Game number 2 versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, let's go back to the final score of that game against Atlanta. That was a loss of, the final score was 14-10. All right, let's go to the second game that he started. It was against the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, he was 6 of 21. 6 of 21. For a completion percentage of 28.6. Now, I hear all you guys talk about, oh, it was Kevin Gilbride's system, you know. He wasn't in a system where he was forced to dink and dunk. I'll get to that later on in the video. All right, so we're at the second game. The second game he started. 6 for 21, 148 yards in his second game. Let's go to game number 3 against Washington. He was 12 of 25. 12 of 25, had a completion percentage of 48%. Threw for 113 yards. Final score of that game was 31-7. Okay, moving on to his fourth game of his career against the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. I was at this game. It was a joy, let me tell you. Let's see. He completed 4 passes. 4 passes against the Baltimore Ravens. Out of 18 throws, he completed 4. Completion percentage of 22.2. He threw for 27 total yards, and he played the whole game. Okay, let's go on to start number, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, this is 5. This will be start number 5 against Pittsburgh. He was 16 of 23. All of a sudden, his completion percentage jumped up to 69.6. I don't know how the hell that happened. He threw for 182 yards. Congratulations. Played Cincinnati. He was 19 of 37. Had a completion percentage of 51.4 against the Cincinnati Bengals. He threw for 201 yards. Then he played Dallas, the final game of the season. He was 18 of 27, 66.7. Holy shit. Once again, I don't know how he pulled that off. For 144 yards. All right, let's move on to 2005. And then we're going to get into how important Tiki Barber was to Eli Manning's career, his first 3 seasons. Because I just want to shit on Eli right now. I'm so tired of you guys giving crap to Daniel Jones and not even admitting the fact that Eli was so bad, regardless of what his records were the first couple seasons that he played. This team won in spite of him. How can you look at numbers and have me tell you numbers like that and not think the New York Giants won in spite of him? Are you kidding me? I had somebody tell me I'm just bringing up goofy stats. Like, kiss my ass. All right, we're going on to 2005. All right, start of the season. First full season with the New York Giants. Let's get into it. God, I hate this computer. Oh my God, are you kidding me? All right, let's get into it. All right, first game against the Arizona Cardinals. This is 2005, his second year. He was 10 of 23. 10 passes he completed for 172 yards. Had a completion percentage of 43.5. Game number 2. 13 of 24. Had a completion percentage of 54.2. Threw for 165 yards. And somehow those were wins. Somehow he won those games. Putting up stats like that. I'm going to end all this nonsense right now about Eli Manning. And anybody that talks trash about Daniel Jones, you need to refer to this video and understand what all of us are trying to tell you about Daniel Jones in comparison to Eli Manning's early career. Game number 3, San Diego Chargers. He was 24 of 41, had a completion percentage of 58.5. He threw for 352. Okay, he stepped it up a notch there. Then he went up against the St. Louis Rams. He was 19 of 35, had a completion percentage of 54.3, threw for 296. One of those was a loss, the other was a win. Then he played Dallas. He was 14 of 29, a completion percentage of 48.3, threw for 215 yards. Then he played Denver. This is one of the games he had a comeback in. I remember watching this game. He was 23 of 42, had a completion percentage of 54.8. Threw for 251. Final score of that game was 24-23. Then he played Washington. This is actually probably one of the worst games he ever played against Washington. That was the only team Eli could faithfully ever beat, was the Washington Redskins. Let me see. He was 12 of 31 for a completion percentage of 38.7. He threw for 146 yards. Moving on to San Francisco. He was 18 of 33. Completion percentage of 54.5. Threw for 251. Against Minnesota, he was 23 of 48. Had a completion percentage of 47.9. Threw for 291 yards. Then he played Philly. He was 17 of 26, had a completion percentage of 65.4. That's better. Threw for 218. Then he played Seattle. He was 29 of 53, had a completion percentage of 54.7. He threw for 344 yards. That was a loss. 24-21. Then he played Dallas. He was 12 of 31. 12 of 31. This is his second year. Had a completion percentage of 38.7. Man, that's below even backup. I mean, these completion percentages when he's down in the 30s and 40s, that is below a NFL backup. The worst backup you can even possibly imagine, it's below that. Then he played Philly. He was 28 of 44. Had a completion percentage of 63.6, threw for 312. Then he played Kansas City. He was 17 of 32. I was at this game. He's 17 of 32. Had a completion percentage of 53.1. He threw for 186 yards. That was the game Tiki Barber broke the New York Giants single-game rushing record. I was at that game. He rushed for like 230-some yards. That's the reason why they won the game. Not Eli putting up 186 yards. All right, now we move on to Washington. He was 23 of 41, a completion percentage of 56.1. He threw for 244 yards. He played Oakland. This was the game, if I'm not mistaken, this was on New Year's. And Tiki had a long run in that game, which basically won the game for us, if I'm not mistaken. He had like a 75 or 80 yard run that he broke free on and scored a touchdown on, and that was basically the reason why we won the game. Oakland, Eli was 12 of 24, had a completion percentage of 50%. He threw for 204 yards. How many touchdowns did he throw in that game? He threw one touchdown, and we put up 30 points. Then we played Carolina, the last game of the season. This was a loss. I'm pretty sure Matt Moore took us to school in this game. I could be wrong. He was 10 of 18. Yeah, this was the playoff game. Yeah, this was the playoff game. It was probably DeLone back then, I guess. I think. I can't remember. He was 10 of 18, had a completion percentage of 55.6, threw for 113 yards. 3 INTs. I'll just throw that one in there. Okay, let's move on to 2006. Those are impressive numbers right there, aren't they? Aren't they? Yeah. Let's bag on Daniel Jones some more. Let's do it. And let's think Eli was just a Hall of Fame quarterback as soon as he got to the NFL. Let's continue to run this narrative. All right, moving on to 2006. Can't wait to see this. Third year. And this piece of crap is giving me a hard time again. All right. So he started off against Indy. He was 20 of 34, had a completion percentage of 58.8. He threw for 247 yards. Hold on. I want to go back to 2005. And let's count how many sub 200-yard games he had. He didn't have that many this year. I'm actually surprised by that. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He had six subpar 200-yard passing games. That was in 2005. And in those games, let's see. He threw for under 200 yards, and let's see if they won or lost those games. You're going to find out how important the defense was and how important that running game was right here. All right, so here's the first one. He threw for 172. They won. They won that game. Him throwing for 172 yards. They won 42-19. Okay? Second game. They beat the Saints. He threw for 165 yards. They won that game 27-10. He threw 1 touchdown pass in that game. Oh, where's the next one? So those are 2 wins when he threw for under 200 yards. Defense and rushing the ball. Right here against Washington. Threw for 146. They won 36-0. He threw 1 touchdown pass, and they won 36-0. 36-0, and Eli throws 1 touchdown pass, and he threw for under 200 yards in the game. All right, what's the next one? This is going to be a long video, but you all need to sit through this. Dallas, he threw for 152. The Giants won that game 17-10. Eli threw 0 touchdowns that game. 0 touchdowns. And he threw for 152 yards, 0 touchdowns, and we won 17-10. Won in spite of him. We move on to the game against Kansas City that I was at. He threw for 186 yards. That was a win. He threw 1 touchdown pass in that game. We won that game 27-17. He threw 1 touchdown pass. We put up 27 points. And he was under 200 yards passing. All right. And then the final sub 200-yard game he had against Carolina. Of course, we lost 23-0. All right. Now we're going to move back. We're going to move up to 2006. We'll start off by counting how many sub 200-yard games he had. Oh, there's a row of them. All right, so starting basically week 5, he was sub 200 yards for like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight games. He threw for under 200 yards. In 5 straight games. How many of those games did we win? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we lost the 5th one. So he was under 200 yards, and we won 4 out of 5 games. How many touchdown passes did he throw for in that span? 2, 4, 5, 6. So he threw 6 touchdowns in 5 games. And he was sub 200 yards in that stretch of 5 games. And we won 4 out of 5. It's the running game, man. It's the running game and defense that won him those games. Not Eli Manning. Not Eli Manning. Let me take a drink. I hope all you Giants fans sit through this video. You need to. You need to sit through this video. I'm telling you, Eli Manning drove me nuts. He drove me crazy. So when I hear people talk positively about him, now don't get me wrong. Eli was a great dude. He was. Eli had a heart of gold. At least as of what I know about him. I don't know him personally, but it seemed like Eli was a tremendous guy. It really did. But man, is he this once-in-a-lifetime quarterback that a lot of you Giants fans make him out to be? Hell no. All right, so let's go through these stats. Game number 1, he was 20 of 34. He had a completion percentage of 58.8. He threw for 247 yards. Game number 2, he was 31 of 43, 72.1 completion percentage. He threw for 371. Game number 3, he was 24 of 36, had a 66.7 completion percentage, 275. He threw for 275 yards. Game number 4, he was 23 of 33, he threw for 265, had a completion percentage of 69.7. That's a pretty good 4-game stretch right there, if you subtract the first one. All right, this is where it really started getting bad. All right, he was 17 of 30 against Atlanta for a completion percentage of 56.7. He threw for 180 yards. Next game against Dallas, he was 12 of 26. He had a completion percentage of 46.2. He threw for 189 yards. Next game against Tampa, he was 16 of 31, had a completion percentage of 51.6. He threw for 154 yards. Next game against Houston, he was 17 of 28. He had a completion percentage of 60.7. He threw for 179 yards. Next game against Chicago, he was 14 of 32. Had a completion percentage of 43.8. He threw for 121 yards. Next game against Jacksonville, he was 19 of 41. He had a completion percentage of 46.3. He threw for 230 yards. Next game against Tennessee, he was 18 of 28. He had a completion percentage of 64.3. He threw for 143 yards. Next game against Dallas, he was 24 of 36. He had a 66.7 completion percentage. He threw for 270 yards. Next game against Carolina, he was 17 of 33. He had a completion percentage of 51.5. He threw for 172 yards. Next game against Philly, he was 28 of 40. He had a completion percentage of 70%. He threw for 282 yards. Next game against New Orleans, oh, this was a real nice one. He was 9 of 25. Had a completion percentage of 36%. He threw for 74 yards. I had to look to see if they won that game or lost that game. They definitely lost that game. Next game against Washington, he was 12 of 26. He had a completion percentage of 46.2. He threw for 101 yards. They won that game 34-28. Unbelievable. Next game against Philly, last game of the season, he was 16 of 27. He had a completion percentage of 59.3. He threw for 161 yards. And he threw for 2 touchdowns, 161 yards. They lost the game 23-20. All right. So that's a rundown of Eli's first 3 seasons. I went through every single game. You heard the numbers yourself. Now, a lot of you people say that, his numbers reflect the system that he was in. He didn't dink and dunk the ball down the field. But, yeah, that's kind of true. But nobody was telling him to throw into double and triple coverage like he was doing and miss wide receivers by 4 and 5 feet at a time. And throw passes that looked like they were coming off the hand of Lamar Jackson. Now, we're going to run through Tiki's numbers. This is just receiving the ball for Tiki Barber. This is going to go against your whole thing about the dink and dunk offense and how it wasn't necessarily used during Eli's first 3 seasons under Kevin Gilbride. Now, in 2004, Tiki Barber had 52 receptions. Eli's first season, Tiki had 52 receptions for 578 yards from your running back. But Eli wasn't dinking and dunking the ball down the field. 2005, Tiki had 54 receptions for 530 yards. Another 500-yard season receiving from Tiki Barber. In 2006, he had 58 receptions for 465 yards. Almost had 500 yards that year receiving for Tiki Barber. That's a total over a 3-year span of 164 receptions and 1,573 yards receiving from your running back over a 3-year span that Eli Manning came into the league. What else did I write down here? Somebody got me fired up on my channel today. That's the whole reason why I'm making this video. And the dude had the nerve to tell me that, oh, well, Plax wasn't doing anything before he got to New York. Bullshit. Plax had 2,000-yard seasons in Pittsburgh, and he had another season where he had 800 yards. So arguably, he played better in Pittsburgh when he was playing with Tommy Maddox than he did with Eli Manning. I'm pretty sure that's who his quarterback was then. So let's go into 2008 when Plax shot himself in the freaking leg and then Eli folded up like a lawn chair. Let's go over those games that Eli played after Plax shot himself. Okay, the first game, which I was at against the Redskins. He was 21 of 34 for 305 yards, 1 touchdown. They won that game. He threw a pick. Next game against Philly, 13 of 27, 123 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 INTs. Unbelievably. Next game against Dallas, he was 18 of 35. He threw for 191 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 INTs. Next game against Carolina, he was 17 of 27. He threw for 181 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 INTs. Next game against Minnesota, he was 11 of 19. He threw for 119 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 INTs. Look at this. These are the yardage totals for his last 4 games. He played 5 after Plax shot himself. Had a good game that first game, but it was against Washington, who he always beat the living shit out of. Next 4 games, 123, 191, 181, 119. Threw 2 touchdowns. He threw 2 INTs. It's like the man completely forgot how to play the quarterback position in the NFL once he lost 1 single player. And he was 11-1 at that point. He screwed the Giants over because he couldn't get it done with anybody else besides Plexico Burress. Plax carried his ass. And you want to tell me Plax didn't carry Eli Manning? There was a year, I forgot what damn year it was, where Plax didn't even practice the whole entire week. And all he would do is play games because he had a high ankle sprain because Eli hung his ass out to dry. And he went out there and gutted it out and did what he had to do just to help that sorry asshole. Do not come at me about Eli Manning. I don't want to hear it. I know what he was. I did not forget. Now, let's talk about Tiki Barber and Eli's first 3 seasons. Do you know how many 200-yard rushing games Tiki Barber had Eli Manning's first 3 seasons? Tiki Barber had 4 200-yard rushing games Eli's first 3 seasons. I was at 2 of them. 2 of them. The game against the Chiefs in New York, and then the game against the Skins in Landover, Maryland. Both times where he broke the New York Giants single game rushing record. I was at both those games. How many times did Tiki Barber rush for over 100 yards in Eli Manning's first 3 seasons? The answer is 21 times. 21 times. He rushed for over 100 yards. And people have the nerve to tell me Tiki Barber wasn't the reason why the New York Giants were winning games. From an offensive standpoint. It was Eli Manning because he's a winner. And he was clutch. Do those numbers seem like he was a winner to you? Those first 3 seasons he played Anything I read off this screen, does it make you believe he was a winner his first 3 seasons? There's no way in hell you can tell me that. And then you people always want to come back at me and tell me, oh, well, the Giants won a Super Bowl after Tiki Barber left. Yeah, well, you had 2 running backs that rushed for over 1,000 yards. It took 2 of them to do what Tiki was doing by himself. And I bet every single one of you would probably tell me, oh, well, this team was better off without Tiki Barber in 07. Bullshit. Bullshit. That team would have been even better with Tiki Barber. Anybody that says that is so freaking out of their mind, it's not even funny. Like, you might as well just retire from being a football fan if you honestly believe that. That's the dumbest shit I ever heard in my life. What else did I want to say in this video? I really want to go through Tiki Barber's game logs. But, I mean, this video is up to 26 minutes. And I don't feel as though I need to go on any longer. But I know I'm going to look back at this video and be like, damn, I probably should have mentioned this or mentioned that. Because that's what I think every single time I do a video about Eli Manning. You guys need to stop giving Daniel Jones such a hard time. He played pretty damn well his first season. He gave you 26 touchdowns. He threw for over 3,200 yards. Yeah, he fumbled the ball a lot. He did. But man, give the guy a chance. After listening to all of this, and these teams that Daniel Jones is playing for are not even close to what Eli Manning had at his disposal when he first came into the league. I said it, other people have said it. It's a well-known fact. Saquon ain't on the field, helping him out. And at this point, is Saquon Barkley even Tiki Barber? I don't even think he is. Because he can't stay healthy. Tiki could stay healthy for the majority of the time. Even when he was getting run into the ground. Tiki, Eli's first 3 seasons in the league. Tiki was always out there. Just dominating every game. While Eli Manning was sitting there taking all the glory. And I had somebody on my last video telling me that the fan base wasn't trying to run Eli Manning out of town. It was the media and idiots like you, this, that, and the other. I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? He's like, oh, the organization didn't want to get rid of him. Do you honestly think the organization was going to come out and be like, oh yeah, we want to get rid of this guy that we traded up, that we basically traded another player for and gave up other assets just to get? You really think the organization was really going to come out and say that? I guarantee you there were a number of players on those teams that thought Eli Manning was an absolute joke that just wouldn't come out and say it. If you ever watched some of Michael Strahan's early interviews about Eli Manning, when they asked him a question about Eli Manning and they asked what he thought of him and basically how Eli was in the locker room, this, that, and the other, Mike always kind of smiles. Like, there's something he wants to say, but he just can't do it. Something I always praised Odell for doing. Even though I'm not big on Odell, but at least Odell had the balls to come out and freaking say what I wanted to hear out of somebody for God only knows how long. Because Eli Manning, for much of his time with the New York Giants, he drove me absolutely nuts. And he is praised for 2 playoff runs and 2 Super Bowl games, one of which he does deserve a hell of a lot of credit for. I can never take anything away from the way that man played in 2011. I never can, I never will. But in 07, when that man breaks away from a tackle, when his progress had probably been stopped, and I was sitting there watching the game live, waiting for the referee to blow the whistle because he was going nowhere, he breaks free, heaves a Hail Mary into the middle of the field, in between 4 Patriots defenders, One of which, Rodney Harrison, who is arguably a Hall of Fame player, or he is a Hall of Fame safety, is draped all over David Tyree's back. Eli threw that pass like he was a little kid in the backyard playing 500 with his buddies. You remember that game? That's what Eli did. Oh, look, there's a Giants player. Oh, well, he's surrounded by 4 freaking New England Patriots. I'm going to throw it that way anyways. There you go, David Tyree. Hopefully you come down with it. That's what happened. You could have made that throw. I could have made that throw. Little Johnny down the street could have heaved the freaking ball down the field and hoped that his player caught it. I said it before. I don't even think Eli Manning thought David Tyree was going to catch that pass when he threw it down the middle of the field. It's unbelievable to me. The legend of Eli Manning. The dude that played with a horseshoe up his ass. I ain't never seen a player in the NFL get away with the stuff that Eli Manning did. Never. And I'm never going to see another one that gets away with the stuff that got away with the stuff that Eli Manning did. Never will. Never will. Some of the stuff he got away with just completely blew my mind and just baffled me to no end. But that's it for the video. I'm out of breath. Give Daniel Jones a chance and quit talking shit about him. I'm done.